Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's Kev Baker here from The Kev Baker Show. And I'm coming to you live from Glasgow, Scotland. And today, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be a very special and important broadcast indeed. So I want to thank you all for tuning in today in your numbers. And you certainly are not going to regret giving up your time to come and tune in to today's show. Because like I say, this is going to be really, really important. We spoke to Ryan Gable over at Contact in the Desert on Freaky Friday and also on the live stream on YouTube on Saturday. And it was the Saturday call that we got from Ryan when he was giving us his updates from the biggest UFO extravaganza in the world, which is Contact in the Desert, that he informed myself and Joe and the audience that were watching on Saturday that he had managed to get a very important piece of audio recording. Now, we're going to be playing that on the show here today. And this is really a follow-up, an addendum to the show that myself and Ryan done on disclosure and something we called the Blue Chicken Cult just a few weeks ago. Now, we're going to catch you up in case you didn't catch any of that show, or this might be new to you. But before I say anything today on any of these topics we're going to get into, let me make one thing perfectly clear. You know, Contact in the Desert is somewhere where thousands upon thousands of people now go once a year to hook up with like-minded people to hear what should be the best and leading speakers on their particular subjects. So anything that's said tonight is not any attack or anything bad against the organisers of Contact in the Desert. This is purely about the infiltration of a small number of misinformation, disinformation, or as I prefer to call them, con artists. You see, for me and so many others out there, ufology, it really is a topic that we hold close to our hearts. I've shared with you countless times before how ever since I was a young child, a young lad, it would be on my imagination, it would be in my mind. Are we alone? You know, staring up at the stars. And as I got older, especially as the internet started to grow and grow, it was so good just to come on and start looking for some of those answers to some of those bigger questions, like, are we alone? So to see what's happened in recent years to the whole ufological scene has been very disheartening indeed. And I find myself in a unique position where, as a member of the alternative media, I think I have a responsibility, and I think others in the alternative media have a responsibility as well, to call out BS when we see it, because it just makes a mockery of all the real research that's going into, in this case, ufology, or any other topic that we might be dealing with at the time. So back with me tonight to help me with this, because he is the star of this show, is my main man, Ryan Gable. Ryan, welcome back, sir. Now, you're on the phone, so we're going to do a sound check with the audience just to make sure that they can hear you loud and clear. And yeah, we've got the Blue Chicken Bombshell tonight, dude.
Blue Chicken check 1 2. Blue Chicken check 1 2. Can you hear me, Kev?
You are coming in loud and clear here, and we'll just get the sound check from the chat room as well. We'll get that. But Ryan, I know before we get started here, yeah, we're sounding good. 5 by 5. Thank you, Polly. Thank you, Carol. I think you too would like to kind of echo my sentiment that anything that we say here today, it's in no way an attack on everyone at Contact in the Desert, the people who went to Contact in the Desert, Contact in the Desert on the whole. We're just identifying a few rogue agents, and like I said, I certainly don't want people thinking that I'm throwing Contact in the Desert out just because of these few characters.
Certainly not, Kev. That's incredibly important to make very, very clear. I know some of the organizers, and every year I'm able to get in because of that, despite the fact that there are some people that want myself and many, many more people than just myself not to attend events like this. But that's not really the point of tonight's broadcast. The point is, as we're going to start here by saying, yes, this is not an attack on anybody, and we should look at the fact that, to me, it's a fact. I went to 4 contact in the deserts, and I've thought for several years that there's been like a 60-40 split, 75-25 split, something like that, in terms of people who are genuine and nice and have some very interesting information and research, and then others that are totally full of hot air or whatever you choose to call it. And this year, I've changed my view on that. I don't really think it's a 60-40 or a 75-25. I think it's more like an 80-20 or a 90-10 now. I think that there are more than I originally thought who are more genuine in terms of speakers and presenters. There are just a few that are, once again, full of hot air, to say the absolute least. And in my experience this year, I want to make one thing very clear, along with what you said to begin, is I had an opportunity to speak with Jordan Sather. And though Jordan Sather did not do this, his audience of cult followers, by definition, exactly what they are, refused to let him answer the question or be asked questions. They protected him in the middle of a literal circle of people and didn't want anybody to say anything to him unless they agreed with him. There was a young lady that came up to me and said, hey, I want to listen to what he has to say, and I want to hear what Jordan has to say back to him. And some lady in Jordan Sather's circle turned to her and said, is this your first conference? And the girl said, yeah, I'm just going around, and it's my first time here. I just wanted to have a good time and meet some cool people and see what it's all about. And the woman said, well, I hope this is your last time here. So it's something to me that's kind of a revelation this year. We're not talking about infighting necessarily between certain speakers, and we're not talking about causing issues by addressing, people by name. What this really is are a handful of people that are literally initiated into a cult without even realizing what they're a part of, and they are the root cause of all of the perceived infighting and so on and so forth. I cannot believe, Kev, that other attendees of a conference would turn to somebody and tell them not to come back because they asked somebody a question and wanted to hear an answer because it was to the contrary of what this group of cult members believed. Now, think about that, buddy.
Yeah, before we get to the actual recording and the bombshell, the blue chicken bombshell as I call it, there's been a bit of a kind of drama occurring over on YouTube, over on Twitter today, and it's that character you mentioned there at the center of this, Jordan Sather. Now, I wasn't there. You can fill me in on this. I don't know if you went to his presentation, but I believe he was heckled halfway through it. There was some sweary words back and forth. I don't know who said what, but it turns out that Contact in the Desert, who produced DVDs of all the speakers' presentations, something went wrong with Jordan's. Now, I first became aware of this today when I was looking at Twitter, and I came across a tweet here which reads, Contact claims they won't release my lecture because there's an F word in it. An attendee of my talks says that I didn't say the F word. Is this an excuse to hide exposing information about ufology? I did talk about hashtag QAnon, Pizzagate, and the Rockefeller Initiative. Now, Contact had already said that, yes, there was a problem because of swearing in the actual DVD. And this is actually quite typical when something like this happens at Contact in the Desert. They don't want that production to go out with the bad language involved. However, we can see how Jordan never let a good crisis or anything go to waste, Ryan, because he's trying to spin this as some kind of censorship of his information, despite the fact that he was invited to talk at one of the biggest platforms in the world.
Absolutely, Kev. And when he says, question form on Twitter, is this a means to censor me? Is this the reason they're censoring me? It's an implicating and implying question. He's implicating Contact in the Desert to be involved as organizers and as a group of people in some form of cabal censorship. And he's suggesting to his audience that the reason that the DVD is not available is because he's being censored due to his commentary on topics, especially like the Rockefellers, that are literally decades upon decades upon decades old, in the sense that we've known about these things for a very, very long time. Pick up a book written by Jim Marrs, and you'll get a college-level course on it. And this is not something new. So what he says about being censored is total BS. Contact in the Desert even tweeted out, I believe, back to him that there were swear words.
Well, I've got it here. I've got it here, Ryan, and it's quite interesting because it kind of gives us a window into something else that's going on here, the bigger part of tonight's story. And Contact in the Desert, they did respond. They said, "Hi, at Jordan Sather. We're not sure who you heard this from, but we hope we can clear things up for you. All we are removing are the F-bombs that were used in your lecture. As Wilcock told you, we can't use that word." Now, as Wilcock told you, now, why would Wilcock be the one responsible for relaying messages to Jordan Sather? And then also Jordan was complaining over the weekend because in his contract, Ryan, in his contract, he had been promised that he would speak on a number of panels. However, it was only thanks to David Wilcock dragging him in as a special guest for 10 minutes that he appeared on any channel, or any panel, sorry. Makes you wonder who he was contracted to. Is it David Wilcock? Is it Contact in the Desert? Is it Gaia TV? Contracts? What's that all about, man?
Well, they all sign contracts when they get the deal to speak. So every speaker has a contract. They get a presentation, a workshop. This is like most conferences. However, what you're saying about David Wilcock, and I saw the tweet as well, my friend pointed something out. She was in the talk, in the panel, and Sather was only there because Emory Smith didn't show up. So that's why Sather came in and he filled in that slot. And while he's sitting there, David Wilcock does a hand gesture and coaches him on how to set up and get closer to the microphone. So here's the deal. Whether or not these guys are geniuses in telling the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, or they're complete con artists, or there's something in between, the fact is they have been trained in how to control an audience, and they've been trained in how to present information. And I'll give you a good example of that. When I first confronted Jordan Sather, I went over and I listened to what he was saying to this group of people. And I went over and I asked him, I said, "Can you tell me about the doxing, Jordan? My friend Joe from the Carolinas, can you tell me about what happened with the doxing?" And so Jordan, who actually attempted to answer the question before his audience got very unruly and started screaming at people and telling them not to come back to the conference, he stood up, and much like the Pope extends his hand like a father about to strike the child, he stood up and he puts both hands out over the audience, and he says, now, and he kind of, pushes his hands down a little bit. Calm down. He's in control. Doxing is legally defined as, and then he gives this definition. And he says, all I did was share Joe from the Carolinas' real name and who he worked for. I did not dox him. And people have a right to know that this guy is living a double life working for a government facility. And so I just responded to that and said, many people at this conference, including myself, have gone by different names. That's a very common thing in radio. That's a very common thing in media. It's not some conspiracy. Joe has a professional life, and then he does this. Jordan Sather used to work at a juice shop. I'd like to know if while he was blending smoothies up, someone gave him some hardcore information about QAnon, and all of a sudden he became enlightened. They plucked this guy. He went through Corey's kids, and now he's being conditioned and trained by David Wilcock to take over the Blue Chicken cult, in my opinion.
Soy boy milkshakes, I think he was putting together. But yes, and this is an important point, this whole doxing thing, because this is something that Corey Good, who wasn't at Contact in the Desert, David Wilcock and Jordan Sather have been accused of in the past. And a couple of months ago, you mentioned one of the cases there, Joe from the Carolinas, and a number of other people were doxxed on the orders and the instruction of, we were told at the time, Corey Good and Jordan Sather. And this was all done via secret Facebook groups and messaging, some of which had come to light, and people put that out on the internet to see just what kind of characters we're dealing with here. And this takes us to the main part of today's show, because Ryan, you mentioned there's another person, Emory Smith, who was meant to take place on one of these panels with all the speakers. However, he couldn't. Now, Emory is somebody that I don't know very well. However, I do know, or I did associate him loosely with what I would call the blue chicken cult and the Wilcox of this world. Now, like I say, I didn't know much about this character, but if somebody had said to me, have you heard of Emory Smith? I'd have said, well, off the top of my head, I think he's one of these super soldiers. I think he's hanging about with the dodgier end of that kind of conspiracy, i.e. the Wilcox and things. But that was about as far as my knowledge on that character went. Now, you had a chance to speak to Emory, didn't you? And we're going to play the audio of that in just a minute. But if you would just kind of let people know, from your opinion, from your point of view, who Emory Smith was before you got to speak to him this weekend.
Yeah, so I used to think Emory Smith was totally full of hot air. And honestly, Kev, I still think that. However, I've gained a very small amount of respect for him for actually stopping and talking to me and answering my questions, and for telling me a couple of things that I think you'll play in the audio, and if not, I'll be able to elaborate.
Absolutely.
That actually, it confirms what we've said for some time. So Emory Smith or David Wilcock, one of them is lying, and that audio absolutely proves that one of them is lying. That's about as simple as we can put it.
Absolutely. And ever since you came onto the live stream at the weekend and dropped this bombshell, dude, I think I've maybe had, a handful of hours sleep, because the other half of the community that's been working on exposing these characters, when they heard the clip of what you had recorded when you were speaking to me, when you were saying to myself and Joe, listen, this is what I've got, we almost had the whole kind of community sitting on a knife edge, because this is something that they've been really wanting to hear. And for some time now, we've suspected that as the noose kind of closes around this blue chicken cult, we're going to start hearing more and more people speaking out. Now, we've got a recording that Ryan conducted with Emory Smith, and I'm sure Ryan echoes this as well. Emory Smith is not somebody we're accusing of anything here at all. And if anything, for me personally, Emory Smith comes out the other end of this episode in an entirely different light. Because like I said to you, although I didn't really know the guy, Ryan, I did have kind of negative kind of ideas about him and his information. So I think people are going to really appreciate hearing this.
I think so too, Kev. And I don't necessarily think that Emory Smith, my view on him has changed slightly. I don't necessarily believe what he was saying before, and I have skeptical views on whether or not what he told me was even 100% true. What makes me think that what he told me was true is that it confirms every single thing I've been told by every single other person, whether they're a speaker or they're someone who has conducted real research and they've contacted places that these guys claim they've worked at and they have no record of them working there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he confirmed speculation and other details that we've gotten from other people. And in my book, though Emory Smith is not a friend of mine, Emory Smith, I doubt he'll even come on my show, though he said he'd be open to it and we can talk later. I have a little bit of respect for the guy now, not only for stopping and talking to me, but when I looked at him and he was talking to me, unless this guy is a reincarnation of Mesmer, he was very, very honest, I felt, in the way that he communicated with me, for what it's worth. That was my feeling.
Yeah, when I was listening to it the first time, and we'll play it in a second, folks, but when I listened to it, Ryan, it was almost as if Emory was quite pleased to have somebody to share this with, somebody who has also obviously got problems and issues with Wilcock and these characters. And, it was quite funny listening to him when he said about Jordan Sather being at the actual conference. But no point listening to me, folks. Let's listen to the recording that Ryan Gable got from Contact in the Desert. And remember, this is nothing against Contact in the Desert. If anything, we're trying to do them a service. Because if they do go with these shadier, more questionable kind of characters, all of the reputation that they've built up and the audiences that grow every single year, there's a danger that might all go away. So, folks,
yeah, and Kev,
on you go, Ryan. On you go.
If I may add one thing, I want to give you one example of the reason that I think that this is important. I think it's important because when I went to David Wilcock's talk, the kinds of things that these people say are so irresponsible. The guy said at his talk, the alliance has control of the National Security Agency. And so don't worry, the NSA is no longer listening to your calls. They're no longer listening and watching what you do. And then people applauded for it. That is a highly irresponsible and reckless comment to make, especially when I can go into the lobby of that hotel, pick up a New York Times, pick up a USA Today, and in the newspaper this weekend, there was a huge write-up about how Amazon Alexa and all of these other smart devices listen and record every single thing you do, which is obvious, yet people clapped, and I'm sure people left the conference thinking, hey, the NSA doesn't listen to me anymore. Hey, Amazon, Google, they don't listen anymore. They don't watch what I do. Highly irresponsible, highly reckless, and you're right, Kev. You have a responsibility. I have a responsibility as broadcasters and other people when they know something is wrong to say, this is wrong, and this is why it's wrong. And you don't necessarily have to believe it, but if you use a little bit of common sense, you can see the reality of what's happening here. And I don't know if David Wilcock is a plant, but the guy sure as hell is acting like one.
Absolutely. So without any further ado, this will take us right up to the break, ladies and gentlemen. Get ready for the Blue Chicken Bombshell. Boom.
Hey, Emory, a question for you. Oh, my name is Ryan Gable, by the way. Nice to meet you. I'm friends with Clyde. So
okay, cool.
For what it's worth. Somebody had told me, and I don't think you did this, I'm just curious, because you're friends with, like, Corey Good and David Wilcock.
Yeah, I'm not friends with him.
You're not friends with Corey anymore? What happened? Like, I'm not aware, I'm just curious.
Yeah, and Dave and I don't talk. I mean, we don't do things together.
Did something happen for Gaia?
We're still friends, like we talk, Dave and I.
But not, like, working together?
Yeah.
Oh, was it like a conflict of
Well,
like
he got
work?
him and, Corey screwed up Dave's life there at Gaia, and then now that they're in a big lawsuit. And,
I heard about the lawsuit.
He doxed me and 12 other people. And
Corey did?
Yeah, Corey hired
okay,
people,
so he doxed you. That's what I was going to ask you, because they doxed a friend of mine, Joe from the Carolinas.
Yeah, Joe too. Yeah.
You know Joe too?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they doxed him, and then they doxed. So they doxed you.
And Channer, yeah.
So Corey Good doxed Emory Smith.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he had a group of 12 people that he hired, and he had, 17 alias names and 20, 30 email accounts.
Wow.
Just to go up and register, if someone liked my video, and everyone would say yes, and someone would be like, oh, this guy's
So they would troll.
They tracked it from them. They're trolling the whole time.
So what about Jordan
the FBI is
Sather?
now involved.
I knew that. Joe told me that.
Indictment.
What about Jordan Sather?
Bad.
Because I know he doxed. He doxed.
He was the main one.
Yeah.
Him and Roger Richards. But they took words from Corey. And Jordan's here.
I know. I wanted to go.
To see him.
I wanted to go talk to him and ask him what the deal was.
Knocked him the out.
Okay, so this is interesting, because when you were more involved with them, let's say.
I didn't know. I was a newbie back then, and I started raising up on the charts there, so they wanted a piece of me, and they basically threatened me, my life, and said, you either come with us, you either choose life or death, Gaia or us. Threatening, on email.
Well, Gaia is a very messed up organization, from what I understand.
No, they're fine. There's no Luciferian.
Well, no, I don't mean that. I mean business practices.
Maybe. I'm not. I just am a contractor for them. But, they treat me really well, and there's a reason Dave was with them for so long, because they are good.
So what was the thing about them not? I thought I like no money. But David wrote that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. He also said I did 3,000 alien autopsies.
That's where that came from.
I did not do 3,000 alien
Okay,
autopsies.
so how many you're claiming you did?
I did 3,000 tissue samples.
Tissue samples. Okay, so that's substantially different than an
because
autopsy.
20 to 50 samples can be from one being.
Yeah.
So it's not an accurate, but they were, just a little bit too much.
Because just for what it's worth, I have been.
And that there, ladies and gentlemen, is the Blue Chicken Bombshell. We'll discuss this on the other side with our very special guest and my good friend, Ryan Gable. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Second part of today's Kev Baker Show with my special guest, Ryan Gable, from the Secret Teachings podcast on Fringe FM. And also, you can check out his website, thesecretteachings.info. That's thesecretteachings.info. Now, before the break, we were playing a recording from somebody called Emory Smith. Now, Emory, you may have heard him on various shows. You may have heard him speaking at conferences about his experience. And like I was saying, before I knew much about Emory, I would have classified him as being in this kind of small corner of conspiracy land that myself and many others out there loosely, affectionately call the Blue Chicken Cult. Now, let me just say that this information that we've played on the recording from Ryan, we will play it again. This is in no way to either, shame Emory Smith or to big Emory Smith up, but I think Emory deserves a lot of credit for, like Ryan says, taking time out to speak to Ryan in the first place, but then being so frank and so candid. Now, the other night we spoke about confirmation bias, and one may say that possibly we're getting excited about this because it kind of fits our preconceived ideas about some of the characters involved. And sure, you can look at it that way, but I think myself and Ryan would prefer that we just add it to all the other evidence that is out there. And it certainly seems to confirm information that we have heard about David Wilcock, Jordan Sather, and Corey Good in the past. And Ryan, to come back to you, towards the end of that recording, it's one thing talking about the doxing of people and stuff like that. Unfortunately, this kind of stuff goes on the internet today. But then towards the end, to hear Emory talking about the fact that David Wilcock had basically made up the whole thing about the 3,000 autopsies, when from what Emory was telling you, it was 3,000 tissue samples. Like you claimed rightly, big kind of discrepancy there. There's a big difference between autopsies, alien autopsies, and tissue samples. But even more disturbing than that is the fact that there was threats made against Emory. Now, could you talk more about that, Ryan? Because I think you yourself wished you'd pursued that further, but I think you'd done really well getting any recording of this in the first place, brother.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, that's a really interesting avenue I could have traveled down, but I'm glad that I did take the Gaia route because I was able to get to that subject of the tissue samples. Now, let me be very clear that I've listened to several interviews Emory Smith has done, and as you know, and many of the people listening and many of my listeners on the Secret Teachings know, I've played so many of those clips on shows on occasion. I do 5 shows a week, so I don't do a show about this every night. I do it like once a month. And I played a lot of these clips, and I'm pretty sure there have been times when Emory Smith never corrected David Wilcock when he said you've autopsied 3,000 aliens. Now, that could be because David Wilcock says you have to go along with this story, or we'll do something to you, or you won't get the money, you won't have, a job here. And that could be very well the reason why Emory Smith said they weren't autopsies, they were tissue samples. And I think he said 27 tissues could have been from the same being. So they're not 3,000 different alien species. So for whatever the reason might be that he said that, whether that's 100% true or it's 50-50 or 75-25 or whatever the case might be, that to me is a huge bombshell, because it proves and it demonstrates without a shadow of a doubt that one of them is lying. And there's ample evidence and ample recordings and ample videos, not just the one that I took, which was actually kind of antiquated in terms of how I recorded things because I didn't have a setup, but all the Gaia TV interviews, all the Jimmy Church interviews, all the interviews from different radio shows that might not be so well known. Somebody is lying. And that tells me that somebody can't be trusted. And if that person cannot be trusted, don't you want to know who can't be trusted? Because I don't want to follow someone who I'm not sure if I can trust what they're saying. And I can tell you this, of all the people at an event like Contact in the Desert, the only two people that don't come out of their room this year, David Wilcock doesn't come out of his room, and Jordan Sather only showed up to do his talk. He got caught up in the lawn area and ended up talking to people for a bit. That's when that group blocked me off and didn't want me to speak to him, and that was it. Every other speaker shows their face. They go around, they shake hands, they talk to people, they have a drink. That's what the event's about. Now, granted, if you don't like to do that, it's not criticism of someone who wants to kind of stay in their room. I knew Nick Redfern. One year he came and he just wanted to stay in his room. It wasn't because he was hiding anything. If you asked him a question, he'd answer it. And that's at least what I can say about Emory. I approached him and he stood there and answered questions despite the fact that his guys, handlers, TV crew, whatever they were like, come on, we got to go. And he moved away from me for a second, and then when he turned around and looked for me because he got pulled aside, and then he said, here, come with us, and we walked and we continued the conversation. So he was very nice and very straightforward. Jordan, on the other hand, didn't want to answer anything without trying to manipulate and
So Ryan, can I ask you, Ryan, were you the heckler then? Are you the one that they're calling the heckler just because you dared to ask him a question?
They called me, the security guard at the hotel who was working for the conference said that it's ambush journalism. And I said, I don't care what you call it. I don't care if it's ambush journalism. I approached the guy and asked him a question because he's going to disappear if I don't ask him a question. I'm not going to get a chance to do that. You know what's funny though, Kev? I got some super inside info for you. The only person that knows this happened was me, my friend Mike D, who's my co-host, and my friend Teresa, who I'm out here with. And what happened was after this event was over with Sather on the lawn of the hotel. I think it's hilarious, buddy. He didn't want to talk to me, and he had all these people like yelling at us and saying, "Get out of here! Leave the conference! Don't come back!" I leave to go get something from my hotel room across the street, and I walk back, and Jordan Sather flies out of the conference in an SUV, and he screams at me out the window in this sarcastic tone, "Hey there, buddy!" So he wanted nothing to do with me when we could have had a conversation. But he had a drive-by sarcastic comment to make as he fled the conference.
Oh, dude, doesn't that just sum this character up? And there has been rumours flying about. I haven't had a chance to speak to Uni firsthand today, but I was listening to some of his Periscope earlier, and they were talking. He was going to be talking about the latest from Contact in the Desert. Now, again, this is second-hand. I haven't been able to verify this yet. But it makes sense with everything else that's going on and with what Ryan's told me as well, and I'll explain why in a moment. But there are rumours that Wilcock and Jordan Sather have had or did have to call law enforcement over the weekend because of death threats that they were receiving at Contact in the Desert. Now, it's not clear if that was from audience members, participants, or, as these two characters would love everyone to believe, the deep state, maybe the cabal were after them for what Jordan was exposing at Contact in the Desert. But, Ryan, that doesn't really tie in with anything you witnessed there, right? Because you didn't see any law enforcement, did you?
The only law enforcement I saw was one police SUV that was parked outside the conference when I got there and sporadically throughout the event. They had one SUV parked there, and it was there before Sather or anybody else got there. I was there a day before the conference. It had nothing to do with any police officer being called because of death threats. And besides that, I've actually got a death threat one time, a long, long time ago, and it had nothing to do with what I was saying per se. It was because I didn't have a political point of view, and I would attack conservatives and liberals, and the radio station I was on was a liberal college. And so because of that, people called in and threatened to hurt me when I was walking back to my car in the morning or walking to the station. And even then, cops don't do anything. They don't rush to the scene to defend you if someone's threatening to kill you. At least that didn't happen in my case. But besides that, no, there were not law enforcement agents and officers walking around to protect Jordan Sather and David Wilcock. And I can guarantee you, people that came to see other people and don't care anything about David Wilcock would confirm that they saw no police officers walking around in defense of these two clowns. But I can tell you also one last thing. Wilcock has 8 security guards that he hires that walk with him.
8 security guards, people. Think about that. Here's a character, no different from myself, Ryan, David Icke, or any of you people out there, right? Why does he need 8 security guards when he's going to a conference that should be filled with people who absolutely love him? They should absolutely be, all singing off the same David hymn sheet. Yet why is he so worried? What is he so scared of? And I think what's happening here is there really is the grips tightening around this real horrible corner of conspiracy land, and the pressure is starting to tell on these people. And it would not surprise me. In fact, I'd be shocked if they hadn't heard by now about our Saturday stream and the potential for some new audio going out there that would be very damning for all of them. And I'm just wondering if this whole drama, and again, I haven't been to confirm this yet, I'll need to speak to Uni, but I wonder if this whole drama that they're starting around death threats and things like that, it's almost to deflect off what is going to cause them some serious problems in the coming hours. Because when people who are even the most ardent followers of Jordan and Sather, Jordan and Wilcock, they're going to really have to sit back and think about what it is they're hearing here. And if they do put it together with all of the other information that's out there, then I think they're going to start to see their idol. And that's what these people are, folks. They're idolized by their audience. That's why Ryan...
idol.
Yeah, that's why they all attack you like a typical cult, Ryan. They won't even let you question their leader.
Yep. You know what, Kev? I got a great story to share with you about that, and I think it'll kind of bring this together even better than you're already doing as a host tonight. When I went over to talk to the Sather group, they were in their circle, and they yelled at this woman not to come back to the conference because she wanted the question I asked answered. Jordan Sather's girlfriend / handler, I'm not sure what she was, she got in my face and was yelling at me, and she got in the face of the girl who came up and was told to leave. She got in her face and was pointing her finger at her, yelling at her. And all we did was ask a question. I wasn't hostile, and I even prefaced with that. So as that proceeded, about 45 minutes later, I was supposed to go with my friend to see Nassim Harriman, but I ended up staying out here with Sather the whole time. And I had a group of people that gathered off to the side of Sather, and they were talking to me, or they were listening to what I was talking about with these other people. And they all had the same feelings that I did about Wilcock and about Sather, same feelings you and your audience have and my audience. And so I'm standing there, and I hear Sather, who's trashing everybody. He's trashing the dark journalist, anybody who's ever disagreed with him. They're disinfo agents, they're shills, they work for the government, everything you can imagine, man. And so I hear him mention me and how I'm a cult leader. I'm part of a cult. He didn't say Ryan Gable's a cult leader. He just said, this stuff over here, this is a cult, pointing to me. And I turned around and I had my voice, if you will. And I said, no, Jordan, this is a cult. By definition, a cult is a group of people that center around a central object, or they venerate a special individual, a certain person, and they make them like a god. And they sit there and they defend them, and they don't want any criticism or any questions asked from the outside. They defend the cult leader. This is a cult. And when I said that, I swear to God, brother, 5 people got up. I'm not sure if they all got up for the same reason, but 5 people got up within the next couple of seconds, and they got up and they came over to where I was, and they left his little circle. I don't know if that's because of what I said, but it was really, really interesting to see the dynamic of how this guy acts and how the group of people that follow him act. And the fact that they claim that they're being censored and that there were security guards and police around or something like that. There were death threats. Let me tell you this. I don't remember, honestly, if it's in the video that I did with Emory Smith and the little audio recording, because I've been through so much in the last 3 or 4 days. Just really 99.99% great experience. Fantastic. Better than any other year. I remember Emory Smith wearing bulletproof vests at one point because he said he was threatened. When I asked him, and again, it might be on the audio, I asked him, Emory, so you're not threatened anymore. Your life's not under threat. And he said, no. And he kind of had like a strange reaction, like, no, why would I be threatened? He said that to me, Kev. He said, no, I'm not, my life's not under threat. So Emory Smith outright said that to me. Despite the fact that he had worn a bulletproof vest in the past, I'm starting to think that, yeah, Wilcock and them used him. And I even told him to his face, I said, dude, I'm skeptical of you. I don't really believe you. And he said, that's okay. That's okay. He didn't get defensive about it or anything. He said, that's okay. He's, I'm just telling you what I know. He walked away and he said, no, I'm not under threat at all. So it seems like they've been playing this up as a big game. And the whole thing about the 8 security guards and the whole thing about wearing bulletproof vests, it's all theatrics to make you think that they're really threatened. Dude, I have seen video, and I'm sure you have too, of Alex Jones. He's got like these ex-Navy SEALs that he hires as bodyguards. Alex Jones, on average, doesn't have 8 bodyguards walking around him. And people do want to kill him.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. And for anyone new tuning in, you might have missed the first part of the show. Today we're going over an audio recording that Ryan managed to take back from Contact in the Desert, in which Emory Smith blatantly accuses and outright points the finger at Corey Good and Jordan Sather as being people, major doxers in this community. But not only that, that David Wilcock made up the lie that Emory Smith had autopsied 3,000 aliens. Now, we'll listen to the audio one more time. All of that's in there. Emory will explain what it actually was that he was doing as opposed to the Wilcock script that he had been given. But listen very carefully, folks. There's a lot of information in just these couple of minutes that we're about to play here. And again, on the other side of that, we'll wrap up with Ryan. We'll start to hear about some of the good experiences from Contact in the Desert. Because like Ryan said there, 99.999% of the time was absolutely positive. And it's only because I think myself and Ryan and others out there who are trying to do this honestly, we have a duty to really kind of, well, how would you put this, Ryan? To make sure that we kind of meet certain standards, or at least that we're pointing out the people who might be misleading others. Is that the best way of putting it here?
Yeah, as broadcasters, we have a responsibility to provide information that is as credible and as justified and as documented as possible. And I feel like I have a moral obligation to provide that information. And I think you have the same feeling too, Kev. Absolutely.
And this is a subject that we are absolutely fascinated by, as I know so many of you are out there as well. And if you are somebody who's followed David or Corey or Jordan in the past, we're not having a go at you. We're merely just showing you information about the characters that you might be following. And then it's up to all of you out there what you do with that. Myself and Ryan, we can only provide in the hope that you will decide. So let's take a listen to this recording from Ryan Gable and Emory Smith at Contact in the Desert 2019.
Hey, Emory, a question for you. Oh, my name is Ryan Gable, by the way. Nice to meet you. Somebody had told me, and I don't think you did this, I'm just curious, because you're friends with like Corey Good and David Wilcock.
Yeah, I'm not friends with him.
You're not friends with Corey anymore? What happened? Like, I'm not aware, I'm just curious.
Yeah, and Dave and I don't talk. I mean, we don't do things together.
Did something happen for Gaia?
We're still friends, like we talk, Dave and I.
But not like working together?
Yeah.
Oh, was it like a conflict?
Well, Corey screwed up Dave's life there at Gaia, and then now that they're in a big lawsuit. And,
I heard about the lawsuit.
He doxed me and 12 other people. And
Corey did.
Yeah, Corey hired.
Okay,
people,
so he doxed you. That's what I was going to ask you, because they doxed a friend of mine, Joe from the Carolinas.
Yeah, Joe too. Yeah.
You know Joe too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they doxed him, and then they doxed. So they doxed you.
And Channer, yeah.
So Corey Good doxed Emory Smith.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. I mean, he had a group of 12 people that he hired, and he had, like, I don't know, 17 alias names and 20, 30 email accounts.
Wow.
Just to go up and register, like, if someone liked my video, and everyone would say yes, and someone would be like, oh, this guy's.
So they would troll.
And they tracked it from them. They're trolling the whole time.
So what about, like,
so
Jordan
the FBI is
Sather?
now involved.
I knew that. Joe told me that.
Indictment.
What about Jordan Sather?
Bad.
Because I know he doxed. He doxed.
He was the main one.
Yeah.
Him and Roger Richards. But they took orders from Corey. And Jordan's here.
I know. I
can't wait
to go.
To see him.
I wanted to go talk to him and ask him what the deal was.
And knock him the out.
Okay, so this is interesting, because when you were more involved with them, let's say.
I didn't know. I was a newbie back then, and I started raising up on the charts there, so they wanted a piece of me, and they basically threatened me, my life, and said, you either come with us, you either choose life or death, Guy or us. Like threatening, like on email.
Well, Gaia is a very messed up organization, from what I understand.
Yeah, they're fine. There's no Luciferian.
Well, no, I don't mean that. I mean business practices.
Maybe. I'm not. I just am a contractor for them. But I mean, they treat me really well, and there's a reason Dave was with them for so long, because they are good.
So what was the thing about them not? I thought no money.
No.
David wrote that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. He also said I did 3,000 alien autopsies.
That's where that came from.
I did not do 3,000 alien autopsies.
Okay, so how many you're claiming you did?
I did 3,000 tissue samples.
Tissue samples. Okay, so that's substantially different than an autopsy.
20 to 50 samples can be from one being.
Yeah.
So it's not an act, but they were, just a little bit too much.
Because just for what it's worth, I have been.
You choose life or death, Gaia or the blue chicken cult. That's not me and Ryan saying that. It's Emory Smith. And I find it quite interesting, Ryan. We see there Emory talking about how he started to come forward, his information started to gain a bit of traction, a bit of popularity, and then boom, that's exactly when he was on the radar of Wilcock and the cult. And they obviously had identified him as somebody who could carry on or carry forth this blue chicken nonsense. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that Emory Smith, and I also told him to his face, I'm very skeptical of the things that you've said. I've said for about 2 or 3 years now that David Wilcock is delusional, that Corey Good is a plant, and that Emory Smith is a useful idiot. And I think that it confirms what I think. Although I don't think that he's necessarily an idiot anymore. That was me kind of being an a-hole. But I can tell you that Emory Smith, for whatever that useful idiot term might mean to you, maybe you define idiot different, he was a pawn in their little game. That's what I can tell you.
No, if you look at the whole kind of world of espionage, I think it comes from the Russians, the useful idiot. And it's not calling the person an idiot per se, but it's basically just somebody that can be used for a purpose. Like you say, a perfect pawn. Yeah, a perfect pawn, a perfect puppet in their game. So yeah, absolutely, dude. I see where you're coming from there.
Yeah, and that's something that we've talked about for some time now. Of course, people might only hear me talk about this subject and think that's all I talk about. It's not. It's like 1% of all the things I talk about, and I hardly ever do radio shows on this. It's not attacking. It's not trying to bring people down. I still have people messaging me and telling me, well, you're just jealous of them. Why would I be jealous of people that admittedly lie, that make things up, and that are seriously we're getting to the point now where we're talking about, like, these people are psychotic.
Yep.
David Wilcock, I think, is to the point where he's lost his freaking mind. Psychotic. I mean, this guy's telling people that the cabal ground his teeth down so he had to get veneers. The NSA isn't listening to you. Here's another bombshell. Wilcock claimed that in the last couple of years he has insiders that told him for the first time ever that the moon is a spaceship. And I'm sitting there thinking, dude, in 1970, two Russian Soviet scientists proposed that in a paper called Is the Moon the Creation of Artificial Intelligence, or not artificial intelligence, the creation of alien intelligence? That was in 1970. If whistleblowers are giving you this in 2018 or 2019, they're just taking it from the 1970 story, or they're taking it from Alan Butler's Who Built the Moon, or David Icke, or they're taking it from Jim Marrs, all of which wrote about that.
And I think, personally, my speculation, it's just David Wilcock that's reading these books, and then he dresses it up with this fantastical stories of insiders and whistleblowers, none of which we ever get to see, none of which we ever get to meet. And that's like a lot of these new kind of conspiracies we've seen over the past couple of years. Compare that to our story here today. Yeah, you can call it drama, you can call it infighting, you can call it what you may. However, Ryan's provided us with documentary evidence to back up some of the claims. It certainly supports a lot of the claims that myself and Ryan made on the show a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of the information that has come to light in recent months about Corey Good, about Jordan Sather, about David Wilcock. So we will let you decide what these characters are all about. And Ryan, the next time we hook up together, hopefully we'll be getting back into some of our good stuff, dude. You know, some of the occult, some of the kind of, what was it we done last time on your show? The crypto stuff? That was awesome, dude.
We did the cryptozoology. That was a great show. And then we did the Beltane show about Notre Dame and El Aqsa before that.
Yeah, so we don't... Yeah, we're almost going to the break here, but just to let the listeners know, myself and Ryan don't like doing this, but we feel morally obliged to do so. Check out thesecretteachings.info. I'll be back with Joe Joseph after the break. Don't go anywhere. Hour number 2 on our Blue Chicken Bombshell special right here on KBS. And I've been joined by the hairiest iteration of Joe Joseph that I've ever seen in my life. Joe, how you doing, man? How's the
chicken blue cow?
How's the transformation into Sasquatch coming along, dude?
Very, very Sasquatchy.
What's with the hairdo, man? Are we like expecting a cold winter or something? Are you starting to grow it out long for that? Is there like a new Woodstock coming up?
It doesn't grow out long, dude.
No?
I'm too old for long hair because it's thinned.
I thought maybe
I'm thinning.
I thought maybe you were just growing it so you could get a little blue tint in it, you know, spike it up and give yourself a bit of a blue chicken thing going on.
You know, dude, in a past life, absolutely. In this one, not so much.
So at the weekend, Joe, we were joined by our intrepid undercover on-the-road reporter, Ryan Gable.
Fantastic.
And,
fantastic work the gentleman's doing.
Yes, he dropped the beginnings of the bombshell at the weekend, the blue chicken bombshell, that there was this recording from Emory Smith, and it certainly seems to align with all of the stuff that myself and Ryan and other people working independently of us have put together in the past. We found out that Corey Good employed 12 people to go around doxing anyone who would criticize the information or anyone within this little core group. And not only that, we are told, and we can only take it, Emory's word, you know, that he was basically given the choice, Gaia or us. Choose, you know, you're messing with your life basically here. Crazy, Joe.
Wow. That kind of stuff just emboldens me.
It sounds like something out of Idiocracy, doesn't it?
It really does. It does. And what's worse is it's a conglomeration of people. I mean, it's like violent dorks. It's an oxymoron. I don't get it. You know, it boggles my mind. It's like I said, if you don't play ball with us, I'm going to stick my plastic lightsaber up your ass.
And I tell you what, when I took a look...
You know what I'm saying?
I tell you, Ryan, you could back me up on this one, dude. I took a look at Emory Smith today. I wouldn't mess with this character If I was Jordan,
No. I'm not saying him.
No,
I'm
no,
talking
but
about the brains behind the
yeah,
situation.
that's what I'm saying. No wonder Jordan Sather and David Wilcock were hiding in their room most of the weekend if you had Emory Smith after you.
And good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him, dude. I mean, honestly, if they're holding him over the fire like that.
So, Joe, much like you seen me starting to, rise on YouTube, you went to Chris Geo, you got me over onto Unbound Radio, you got me a wee show. I mean, these characters, they done something similar, only different, because they spotted Emory coming onto the scene. He had a good story to tell, and they thought, aha, cha-ching, cha-ching, let's take him into our little group here. We'll tweak little parts of his story, and then we'll send him out to the world to sell it for us. That's basically what we've heard has happened here.
And you're surprised?
No, but it's great.
This is what happens when money enters the equation. This is when it becomes your driver. You will do anything to make a buck at that point. It becomes more about greed than it does about the truth, than it does about maybe true interest in the subject matter, that you're pursuing. You certainly cede the moral high ground. That's for damn sure. So you can see where this comes from. And I can't believe that more people don't use their discernment and see this for what it is. It's the same thing that Jones is doing right now. He's totally went full in on, the crazy, political involvement stuff that he's doing and the in on Trump and all that. It's the same shit. It's all money driven. He honest to God, if it wasn't for Google pulling the rug out from everybody, he'd still be doing his Jones stuff. He'd still be the old Jones, but he can't be the old Jones. He can't be the old Jones because he can't afford to be the old Jones anymore, because all those avenues of being able to make that revenue are now gone, and his overhead is high. So he's got to pay for it. And, just like all these CEOs and everything else, he wants to make a buck too, or a million, so that's what he does, is he uses his platform to go and sell a bunch of snake oil products. It's the same shady crap, if you ask me, So I see it across the board, and I've seen it this way basically since my involvement in independent media, is that anytime you make money in independent media, typically there's some sort of nefarious thing going on in order for you to do it. Because you know how it is. You know that if you do it because you love it, you're not getting rich on it.
No.
Not even you can't live on it. You can't live on it. That's what it all boils down to, because you're not trying to sell anything. You're letting the information sell itself. But typically, though, when you do that and you talk about things dealing with morality, dealing with government corruption, dealing with that kind of stuff, you typically talk to, and your audience tends to be younger, and they tend to be more blue collar in nature. Hence, they don't have the resources to be sending money in for snake oil, to buy these things, to put money into scams and all that stuff. They just don't have it. They don't have it. So, and that's the thing, is that we know that, and it's okay. And that's what makes us kind of special, in that we're not looking to be a million subscribers or anything like that, or, millionaires, not even. I make zero on this, period. As a matter of fact, it costs me money to do this kind of stuff, but I do it because it's kind of my way of giving back. I have to. And if I don't, I kind of feel like I'm letting the man upstairs down.
A very good way of putting it. It really is.
Yeah.
And Ryan, people might be forgiven for thinking this contact in the desert, what a shit show this is. But again, that's not the case. And like you were saying, 99.9% of the time, it was absolutely brilliant. So how about sharing with us some of your highlights from the weekend, Ryan?
Yeah, I had several highlights from the weekend. I started off with a Clyde Lewis presentation, Atomic Alien Theory.
Ooh,
Notice Clyde actually used the word theory.
yummy.
And Kev Baker was brought up at the end of that presentation. So Kev Baker made it into Contact in the Desert.
You see, I managed to get there, Ryan. I managed to get there and not offend anyone, eh? Brilliant.
I'm surprised some of his Photoshoppery didn't make it there. As a matter of fact, maybe you know what we should do next year at Contact in the Desert is we got to get you there, but you have to morph yourself into an art dealer and just have prints of all your Photoshoppery right there, man, and display for people to. I'll bet you'd sell a shite load of those like posters.
Yeah.
Oh man, you'd be freaking dude. It's the accent. What it does.
It's the accent. That's what does it. Yeah. So we had Clyde Lewis. What else stood out for you, Ryan? Because there was so many great speakers there. We had Von Daniken. We had Giorgio. He was there as well. Apart from Clyde, because everyone knows me and you are huge Clyde fanboys. What really kind of stood out for you, man?
Yeah, that's a great point. I just had to mention that first. After that, I saw Dr. Lynn Kitai, the Phoenix Lights lady. I'd say about 70% of her presentation was really, really good information, and then it kind of dribbled off at the end for me. It was more of like a sales pitch, which is fine. She's a very genuine lady. When I talked to her, she seemed very nice. She showed a lot of photographic evidence of photographs that were taken long before the Phoenix Lights, several weeks before the Phoenix Lights. And one thing that really got driven home with her, and then I actually talked to a few other people about this, is that the Phoenix Lights wasn't just seen in Phoenix, and it wasn't just that one day. It was seen before, and it was seen all the way down through Arizona. It was seen in Nevada. It was enormous. It was the most widespread and widely documented UFO sighting ever, and it gets very little attention. So that was kind of a refreshing thing to see at the conference this year. From the conference point of view, but otherwise that was an interesting talk. And I have to say that I go to a Graham Hancock talk when he's there, and he's usually, I always say he's like the gold standard of presentations. The guy's very, very well spoken. He's got very, very good information. It's very well documented, very well researched, and he's a really him and his wife are just very genuine, lovely people. So Graham Hancock was great. And I got to say, there were several people I've never heard of before, I've never talked to before, and some people that I've heard of but I've never talked to, and some of them I don't necessarily know much about their story, or I don't really believe their story. That doesn't mean I disbelieve it. It just means I don't necessarily believe it. And I don't dislike those people. That's why I said 99.99% of everything was a fantastic experience. I even got to sell some books on Brad Olson's table, and Clyde and Ron and Olav let me sell some books on the Ground Zero table. Everything was just a really, really great experience. We sat down, we watched Close Encounters one night, we watched Arrival another night, had some fun. And I even danced for the first time.
Ryan Gable danced?
Whoa.
Did you look like do a Mad Blue Chicken two-step or something? What's going on here, dude?
I don't know. I was possessed by the blue chickens temporarily, and then my friend pulled me out of the trance. So I'm okay
Damn
now.
it, man! What is wrong with you? Have you no pride?
So Kev, it was fantastic. I had more fun this year, and I had more contacts, no pun intended, and I had more connections and more networking capabilities this year than ever before. And here's the thing, check this out. The first year I came, I slept in my car. This year, when I'm trying to do recordings, there are some things that I'm talking in conversation with Emory Smith that I missed because all I had was like an 8 gig iPhone, or all I had was an iPad that doesn't hold a charge. That's the kind of stuff that I'm doing this with. If I can do that with an iPhone that has 8 gigs, and I can do that with an iPad that doesn't hold a charge, and I can do that with hardly any money, just some people that support me and buy books and do subscriptions, and a very, very small amount at that, and I can affect that kind of reaction, it shows you how powerful, in my opinion, and to use a word I don't like using, it shows you how powerful morality and being honest and the truth really is. Whether
It
that's
truly
me
is.
Kev, Joe, or anybody else.
No,
Yeah, it truly is.
You know, Joe, what does that say about the world, eh? When just being, you know, a good guy, a decent guy, having morals, makes you stand out from the crowd. I mean,
well, it does. And so, like, you remember how, oh boy, dude, guess what? Guess what comes out like next week or next month? I'm sorry, next month. Stranger Things. Season 3.
Nice.
Right? Okay, so you remember what's the name of the netherworld that they go to? The upside down,
The upside down, yeah.
Okay, so imagine we're in the upside down, right? And what are we? What are people that do this for those kind of reasons? We do it because, you know, there's a certain light. You know, we kind of feel almost duty bound to do this kind of stuff. It's almost ingrained in us to do this. Well, there's a light that comes with that. And then the upside down, you shine like a freaking lighthouse. And so it makes you a target. There's a target there that, you know, it's not all love, peace, and harmony. It's a ton of spiritual attack. It's a ton of craziness that happens when you do this kind of stuff. You know, I mean, there are all kinds of crazy things that happen to you. And it's an individual experience. The same thing doesn't happen to the same person. It's really screwed up. But being that Ryan's there right now and doing what he does is such a great example, at least to me, that when you're in pursuit of that, of, you know, the things that at least I look at as Yeshua's namesake, he says that in the Bible. I look at it like he's going to provide you everything you need to get it done. It may not be, you know, you're not going to have the terry cloth robe and drinking Cristal, you know, in the big bed that you don't even have to put a quarter in to make it vibrate. You know, but it'll give you everything you need to do what you have to do and affect the change that you need to affect. It just ends up, there it is when you need it. You know?
Absolutely, brother.
And that's really the most.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah,
loud and clear, my friend.
We hear you now, Ryan. And I was going to ask you because somebody else you spoke to as well, and I know you're going to be playing this on your show, but Laura Eisenhower, and we spoke about her on our previous Blue Chicken Cult Bombshell show that we done. Not quite as big a bombshell as this one's been, but what was your impressions of Laura then, Ryan?
Yeah, and if I may make a quick comment, I admittedly know that I'm aggressive, and I can be belligerent, and I can be an a-hole. So I'm not some special guy. I'm just telling you that that's how I interact with people. So it doesn't make me special for doing those things. But
you
Laura,
see that's why you fit in perfectly with me and Joe, because we're all of those things as well.
That's a roll. So how was Laura?
Okay, so yeah, I had talked on a show a couple of months ago, maybe 7 months ago at this point.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my friend Mike D, co-host of mine, and we were just saying how you know, a lot of people, we were talking about the Blue Chicken Cult. I think we called the show Ascension, It's a Trap. And we used the imagery from Star Wars. That was one of our promo picks. My favorite's the David Wilcox New Veneers, New Teeth, Same Scam. That was one of my favorites. But
you know what's funny about that? I think that's funny because I remember it was a ways back, and Burmis was he went back to co-host for Jones, and he was doing his night show, but at the same time he was doing some stuff with Unbound Radio and us, and I remember he got the veneers done, and I was like, holy shit, Burmis. I said, you look like you got effing horse teeth. What the hell did they do? They totally I mean, he had like Mr. Ed Wonkin white teeth. I'm sure he still got him. He looked like a woodchuck. Just big old teeth.
They asked Wilcox, they said, how large would you like your veneers? And he said, as big as my ego. So they just...
As big as my ego, Jesus. That's some big teeth.
Some big teeth. I did a show where I was talking about these guys a long time ago. And anyway, my friend Mike, he brought up Laura Eisenhower, and we were just playing some clips of some things that she had made claims of on the Edge of Wonder show.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things she said was about the Aquafarian race. And I said, that kind of sounds like, a water bottle. Like someone asked you, hey, do you know about any aliens? What are the names of the races? And you're kind of panic and you look around and you see a bottle of Aquafina and you say, Aquafarians or Dawsonians or the Coca-Cola.
Dawsonian.
So we're doing this show, and we basically just went into the background of the President Eisenhower, and I said that Laura Eisenhower, her real name is Bradshaw, and she only took the Eisenhower name for fame. And so the bottom line is, I asked her about that. That was one of the two things I asked her about, and she was straight up very forward with me. She said, yeah, my name is Bradshaw, and I just took the Eisenhower name later because it's helped me with my career. She didn't hide it. She wasn't inebriated. She was very sober. She told me right to my face, I just used the name because it helps me. And I said, you know what, Laura, I really appreciate you being honest with me. Thank you so much. And I shook her hand, and she put both her hands on mine and said, I appreciate you being very courteous with me. And that was it. So that's one of the things with Laura. The other thing was I asked her about the water bottle people, the Aquafarians, and how they went extinct and what they're called the electric wars. And I said, where did you get that information? And she said, it's online, the Ascension Portal website or something. I forget what it's called. And I said, yeah, I think I read it there, but where does that information come from? And so she takes her phone out and she starts reading it to me. And she's like, the electric wars took place 5 million years ago. And I said, no, I mean, where does the info come from? And she said, a friend of mine publishes this. And I said, okay, but where does she get it from? And so we basically got to the point, and I got a recording, an interview with her, and it was basically that her friend publishes this, and Laura just bases what she says off of what she feels is right. She didn't say she has documentation of it. She didn't say she has proof of it.
So she's a sales lady. She's a sales lady.
In a sense.
Yeah, so she's the pitch man. She's a pitch woman. She's the one that makes the pitch for the website. That's all it is.
You see, Joe, we're doing this all wrong. The next time I take you onto my island called Speculation, what we'll do is we'll drop the whole journey via the sea of speculation, and we'll just say we're going to the island of unnamed sources and deep insiders that we can't reveal, but you have to take our word for it. This information's genuine. And then what we do is we'll go to
you could use me as a DOD insider.
Yeah, we could go to Before It's News and Above Top Secret, and we could just use all of the stuff that turns up on there as fact. And then that's us set, man, right?
I've got insiders, and my insiders tell me that these other insiders are lying. So if you want to have an insider war, we'll have an insider war.
My insiders are
speculation.
Yeah, my insiders are bigger than your insiders.
Mine use two letters.
But Ryan, you're on a road trip now, right? So, I mean, are you going to be taking in a bit of Area 51, anything like that? What's on your agenda, dude?
Yeah, I've done that before. I've gone to Area 51 before. It's an interesting area. Fun. I've talked about it. Seen the F-35s and literal cloaking and uncloaking. They turn invisible by bending light. I'm just taking a little trip out in the Southwest while I'm out here. And I'll miss a few radio shows, but, I've obviously been on Kev Baker. We've done some live streams with Clyde Lewis, and I recorded about a 45-minute video this morning with just a couple little details about the contact thing. It's on my Facebook page. I'll post it on the website tonight, and that's also on my YouTube page, though I don't use it very much. So that's basically what's been going on. But I really wanted to add one last thing, if I may, before the break. We have time for that?
Oh, please do, Ryan. Yeah, the floor is yours.
So, Brad Olson is a friend of mine. He's probably my oldest friend in the radio industry.
Ryan, I've had Brad on here a couple of times, and he's probably one of the most approachable, down-to-earth characters I've worked with.
Yeah, he is. Brad is just a very down-to-earth, genuine guy who just he wants to help, and he wants to figure things out just like the rest of us. So Brad is one of my oldest friends, and I've stayed with Brad. I've been to his street fair, and I can't believe this was last year already. Time seems to just fly. Well, I went to the 5D conference, and Jordan Maxwell was supposed to be there. He showed up later. Brad was there giving a small talk, and the conference was supposed to be huge, but hardly anybody showed up. So I went to sit in Brad's room, and I listened to his Antarctica talk. And he showed a picture of a UFO in ice. And I thought maybe it was just like, hey, this is what we think it looks like if a UFO crashed in ice. And so I told him afterwards, I said, hey, Brad, that's from a movie. It's called The Orion Conspiracy. Back in 2009, I believe it was. It was by a French director, and he made this movie about the gullibility of how people will believe everything that they see. And they put these little, kind of comments that were incorrect throughout the video just to, mess with people. Just a short little film. And Brad said, he's like, oh, I don't know, I've never heard of that. Well, let me tell you something. To Brad's full credit, I went to Brad's talk. I missed the first couple minutes because I was at another panel, and it was like 8:30 in the morning. I go over there, and I go into Brad's Antarctica talk, and he's actually been to Antarctica. That doesn't mean that makes him an expert. He only went to a tiny piece of the continent. But he goes in, and he knows a ton about Antarctica now. He's studied. He's read all these books. He's been there. It's a really great story. And he's got these great pictures of like penguins and stuff. You can walk right up and take pictures of them. So he's got all these images. He's explaining his story, and he's building up to this whole Antarctica UFO alien thing, right? And he gets towards the end of the presentation. I'm sorry, Kev?
Oh, a little bit of feedback there from somewhere. You okay?
I'm echoing.
Yeah, it's okay now. I think it's okay.
Okay, great. So I'm going into his talk, and I'm standing in the back, and he saw me back there. He must have seen me walk in, and this has nothing to do with me. This is all about Brad. He's standing there, and he shows the slide of that UFO in the ice. I'm sure a lot of people know what I'm talking about, even if you don't know what I'm talking about. And I've done several shows on this. I did a show called A Tale of Two Proofs. And he shows this.
No, feedback again.
UFO and says, yeah, we're getting feedback again. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, I don't know what that was, dude.
Well, I'm close to Area 51. Maybe I can do that famous Martinell call.
We can just play on that,
Right.
yeah. But I'm actually showing the image just now if anyone wants to watch this later on YouTube. And it's a famous image, right?
It is a famous image. And if you want to show your listeners the Orion Conspiracy, some people have chopped the video up and edited it. The original video is still on Vimeo, and you can find it on YouTube. It's like 19 minutes and 38 seconds, if I remember correctly. It's like 19 minutes and something. That's the short film. So that's where it comes from. Brad shows this image, and he says, now to move on to the speculation part of the presentation. He used that word speculation. And he said he's splitting his talk up between, his experience and then what is speculative. And again, this is about me. It's about Brad. And I already love Brad anyway, but I showed him that, hey, that photo's from a movie.
Welcome back, everyone, to our Blue Chicken Bombshell special broadcast right here today on the Kev Baker Show on the only network that counts, and that is www.tfrlive.com. Truth Frequency Radio, where silence is consent. And I'm sure a few characters out there will be wishing that myself and Ryan and Joe would just be silent and give them 1 minute's peace to get on with their grifting, to get on with their con job. But just before the last break, Ryan, and I have to thank you for giving up some of your time today. I realise you're on your road trip, but we wanted to get this information out there. And you were addressing a very infamous photo in the world of ufology in recent times. And that's this thing where you almost see the top of what looks like a flying saucer. Below the ice, there's a kind of crevice. You can see this metallic object. And you were talking about how your good friend, I've had him on the show here as well, Brad Olson, fresh from a trip down to Antarctica, no less. Now, he was getting ready to present this image, and I'll let you finish off the story, Ryan, because the music cut us off before the break.
Yeah, certainly, Kev. Thanks for having me over in the next segment. Brad presented that at a couple different conferences, and at 5D in LA, I had a chance to go out there, and that was disappointing. The conference there was like nobody there. So there was hardly anybody in the room, and I went in and I saw Brad talking about this UFO in the ice. And I talked to him afterwards, and I said, hey, that's from a movie. And he said, "Oh, I didn't know anything about that. I don't know." And that I just left it there. I didn't say anything else. Well, I kept posting things like that on Facebook, and I would send things to him when I would see people posting those images, because I knew he was going down to Antarctica. And so he goes down to Antarctica, and he was only on the western side, I believe. He hardly saw, much of Antarctica, relatively speaking, just a tiny piece. But he comes back, he's given presentations on Antarctica. He's been on Coast to Coast and Fade to Black, and he's been on my show talking about, Antarctica and his experience. And so, long story short, he saw me walk into his presentation, and this has nothing to do with me. This is all about Brad, and this is what integrity looks like, and this is what being honest looks like, all right? I walk into the talk. He saw me in the back when I walked in, and he gets done with his presentation on Antarctica as an experience that he had, and then he moves into the next part of the presentation where he broke it in half, and he said, okay, this part is the part where we're speculating. We don't know this for sure. And he shows that picture, Kev, the one that you're showing, the one that I've talked about many times. It's one of many pictures, actually, of the UFO and ice, quote-unquote UFO and ice. And he said, I want to point out that my good friend Ryan from The Secret Teachings showed this to me, that this image is from a movie. And he said, I went back and I watched the movie, and he said, sure enough, it's in the movie. It's Photoshopped from a movie. He said, so you take that for what it's worth. That's what I found. Now listen, that's what integrity looks like. That's what having a sense of a moral compass looks like. You figure out that something is inaccurate, and so you change the information that you're presenting to now align with the new information that you have. Does that make sense, guys?
It makes perfect sense. And Joe, I know you'll agree with that. And, Joe, maybe you should take a leaf out of Brad Olson's book, because the last time you came across some information and whistleblowers that kind of didn't pass your smell test, you decided to pass them on to me when I was naive and wet behind the ears, and I fell for it, dude. And I had to go back with egg on my face and eventually say, okay, I got it wrong. But I blame you. No integrity from Joe Joseph, Ryan. None whatsoever.
Yeah, you'd never do that again now,
no,
will you?
Landing me with the red dragons. I'm telling you, Joe.
I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. I told you that. I wouldn't.
No, but I did. But that was back in the day. But you're so right. And the serious side.
Hey,
on you go, Ryan.
Oh no, I was saying, can you guys cut out a little bit? So I didn't know if you asked me a question.
No, I was just having a laugh.
I simply called him a click whore.
Yeah, I was just having a laugh because Joe has zero integrity, like Brad Olson. But no, you're so right, dude. And I'm sure you've had to do it. I've had to do it. I'm sure Joe's had to do it. It's not the easiest thing in the world, standing here or sitting here in front of thousands of people, having to admit that you've got it wrong. But it's only when you fail to correct these.
All done it.
Yeah, it's only when you fail to correct these errors, and everyone can make a mistake, It's only when you fail to correct it, and you've got to be a big enough guy or woman to go back there and correct yourself. And I think people probably have a far lot more respect for people who are willing to do that, Ryan, than these others that would rather just name call and dox anyone trying to point out the lies,
That's right. And, sometimes you're not wrong because you're being irresponsible. Sometimes you're just wrong because you don't have enough information, because you lack a little detail. And that's just more like having, a little bit of inaccuracy in what you're presenting. And I think that's, in some cases, that's all that we're dealing with. For other people, it's intentionally trying to mislead by altering evidence to match your predetermined conclusion, which is not science. That's pseudoscience. And even Graham Hancock talked a lot about that during his presentation, that a lot of archaeologists and a lot of scientists in general, they alter evidence to match their predetermined conclusion. And we're not trying to alter evidence to match the conclusion.
Yeah.
We're trying to determine what the conclusion is based on the evidence that we have. And sometimes we change our points of view because we come into new information, i.e., the Emory Smith example. I don't necessarily believe Emory Smith still, but that's a pretty bombshell piece of audio that changes my mind on Emory Smith in part.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Ryan, off behind the scenes, I mean, we've both had independent kind of information coming forward from other people out there, and we're not going to name anyone because we've got far too much professionalism and respect to do that. But what Emory has been recorded saying aligns, for me anyway, with one person I've spoke to about all of this stuff with a deeper inside knowledge. And I think it lines up with what you've been told off air as well, right?
Can you repeat the question, Kev, please?
Yeah, I mean, what Emory has actually had to say, I mean, we've both been independently, at various times informed by other people who have inside knowledge of very similar kind of information. And it just kind of, the Emory stuff really just aligns with everything we've been told publicly and privately, on and off air.
So we talked about that at the beginning of the broadcast. It does tend to align with what we've been told. It tends to align with well-controlled speculation. And it also aligns, interestingly enough, with what Joe from the Carolinas told me about the FBI investigation and how multiple people were doxxed. And by the way, he told me not to say anything, and then I guess I was left out of the loop. I didn't know how many people knew about this, but that doxing took place right after the show that Joe from the Carolinas did with us on the Secret Teachings. And so all that stuff that we were told, I mean, if you can believe anything that Emory Smith said, I think he gave himself a little bit of credibility. It certainly shows that what we've thought is a lot more accurate than what we could have imagined before, perhaps. Or
Absolutely.
What we thought before as speculative. It's a lot more than just speculation.
Absolutely. And what we can do is we can add it to the evidence that is now mounting. And I would imagine over the coming weeks and months, as more pressure is inevitably put on Wilcock and his gang, because that's what they are, I think we'll start to see more people like Emory Smith coming forward and, telling their story. There'll be a number of reasons for that. They'll be watching the implosion of people that they're close to, and some will be doing it for their own damage protection. I get that. But at the same time, usually this is when we start to see the truth coming out, or at least the true faces of the characters involved. So, Ryan, I want to thank you for everything you've done for myself and Joe and KBS and the whole audience over the weekend. It's been frantic for you, and you've managed to take time out, a lot of time out. So I can't thank you enough for doing that here with myself and Joe. And I hope you have a wonderful time away. And as soon as you get back, me and you will get back to doing some good work and not this kind of stuff. Hopefully we'll have nothing to say about the blue chicken cult the next time we hook up together, right?
No, hopefully not. And so listeners are made aware, since I won't be having my new show 5 nights a week just for this week and part of next because I'm traveling, what you're getting on Kev Baker right now and what you got over the weekend, that's the new information and that's the updated information. And I'll go into even more detail. If you can imagine that, I've got tons of notes I made on my show, The Secret Teachings, when I return in just a couple of days. So, Kev, thank you for having me on. And I have to mention one last thing. Another big highlight of Contact was sort of unrelated to Contact. Leo Zagami was at Contact. And Leo Zagami and
Yes.
we all had dinner and saw a private presentation. It was pretty interesting evening. We were up to like 2 o'clock last night.
Oh, a private presentation from Leo.
My.
You were inducted into the lodge. I'm only joking, Ryan. But
Yes.
Conspiracies will start through comments like that.
Cardinal Ryan, I presume.
The OG. Leo is like the OG of Vatican conspiracy, dude. I love him.
I like Leo too. I love him a lot. He gave me, we traded books actually because he wrote, actually for Kev Baker show, Kev wrote me an introduction for my new book, The Technological Elixir. And right next to Kev Baker is Leo Zagami in the book.
You see, Joe, I'm getting about these days, dude. I'm getting about, man,
I was going to say, it sounded kind of like a little truther homosexual experience that was going on there for a second. Oh, we're just swap books and all this kind of stuff. It was like you guys were on a date. I like it.
He's terrible, isn't it, Ryan? He's absolutely unbelievable. I can't take Joe Joseph anywhere, dude.
Come on, hey, jocularity.
Well, I can. First of all, I can make a comment and say that I can't believe that Leo wanted my books. and he wanted them autographed. He asked me
Dude,
for
that's
that.
badass.
That was unbelievable. The other thing that I thought was that I think I can probably one up Joe is, David Wilcock gets married, and now his wife is like a featured speaker. And so I guess whether you're Jordan Sather or you're Elizabeth, if you play with the Wilcock, you get presentations and money. I guess that's how it goes.
Oh, you see, this is why you fit perfectly.
Hey, he fits right in.
Yeah.
You are Freaky Friday material, my friend. That's all I got to say. We've got to somehow get you on Freaky more often.
This guy,
this is ridiculous.
He thinks on the same frequency as us, Joe. Absolutely.
It's perfect.
But Ryan, I will let you get back to your day, sir, and I will have this on YouTube tonight. No doubt it's going to start a whole swathe of drama over in that corner of internet land, but that's okay, because we're not just making speculatory kind of accusations or anything like that. We're just presenting the evidence. We provide and let the people decide. Ryan Gable, ladies and gentlemen, catch him at thesecretteachings.info. He's on 5 nights a week over on Fringe FM, and I can't wait to have him back on the Kev Baker Show.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I hope
Good night,
everybody
Ryan.
has a really great.
Thank you, Ryan, and you have a wonderful day, and I expect to see lots of pictures from the road. So, folks, that there was the quite brilliant Ryan Gable. And Joe, what did you make of that one then, dude? You know, he promised us at the weekend that there might be this recording, you know, it might say this, might say that. Ho, ho, ho. Brown chicken, brown cow.
Yeah. You sure do like to stir the pot, you two. That's all I can. And now, you see, now I know how Popeye felt every time I dragged him into shit. So this is good. See, now you're dragging me into it, and it just, here we go.
Hey, I'm not dragging you into anything, dude. You know, all we're merely doing is presenting the information of somebody previously on the inside that was threatened with death. It was Gaia or the Blue Chicken Cult, and the fact that he had been told to say that it was 3,000 alien autopsies, when in reality it was maybe 3,000 tissue samples, wherever they came from, who knows. But Wilcock had insisted, let's just make it alien, you know, autopsies, because that sells better. Don't shoot me, dude. Just, you know, don't shoot the messenger. Shoot the message.
It is what it is. It is what it is.